Okay, let's just dive right into this explainer. You know, there's this really fascinating shift happening in education right now. For decades, we focused so heavily on passing tests and memorizing facts. But how do we actually bridge the massive gap between rote memorization and true, real-world competence? How do we ensure that what happens in the classroom genuinely prepares someone for the unpredictable challenges of life? Well, today we're going to unpack the powerful teaching methods designed specifically to build that exact bridge.
So here's our roadmap for today. First, we'll look at the meaning of true competence. Then, what are integrated pedagogies? After that, active learning in action, collaborative versus cooperative learning, and finally, inquiry and project-based learning. Let's get going.
Oh, and real quick before we jump in, I just want to note that all the insights we're covering today, they're drawn straight from the academic foundations laid out by the University of Education, Winneba, specifically from their Principles and Practice of Teaching curriculum. It's a fantastic, rigorously researched framework, and we're going to make it super visual and practical for you.
All right, Section 1, the meaning of true competence, moving beyond simple skills.
So what actually is the difference between having a skill and being truly competent? Well, it's a question every educator, parent, and honestly, curriculum designer really has to ask themselves. Because as the research makes super clear, just filling a learner's head with facts, it just isn't enough anymore. I mean, you can have a specific skill, sure, but that absolutely does not guarantee you're competent when, reality actually hits.
Think about driving for a second. Having a skill is kind of like driving a car under totally normal, sunny conditions. You know how to steer, you know how to hit the brakes, right? But true competence? That's successfully handling that same car when unexpected, heavy rain suddenly starts pouring down. It's like skills are these isolated abilities you practice in a vacuum. But competence, that's what happens when the environment suddenly changes and you have to adapt literally on the fly.
So the really crucial point here is that competence is defined as the natural mobilization and use of a set of resources, with the view of addressing a situation and responding to it in an appropriate way. Basically, it only happens when diverse skills, both your knowledge and your know-how, are actively integrated to solve a specific, messy, real-life problem. It's not just about having the tools in your toolbox, it's knowing exactly which tool to pull out when things get incredibly complicated.
Moving on to Section 2, what are integrated pedagogies, the bridge to real-world application?
Simply put, an integrated pedagogy isn't just some single magic teaching trick. It's way more than that. It is a comprehensive, layered strategy. We're talking about a deliberate pedagogical plan designed to pull together a rich set of teaching, learning, and technological techniques to achieve desired learning outcomes. Because the ultimate goal here, it's not just passing a test. It's about connecting classroom concepts to becoming a responsible citizen and a genuinely competent worker.
Now, what's really interesting about these core objectives is how they shift the focus entirely away from the teacher's lecture and squarely onto the learner's survival and adaptability. Right? We want to make sense of the learning process in real-life context. We want to help learners differentiate information based on its daily relevance. But most importantly, we're teaching them to organize their knowledge so they can handle routine daily events and, this is key, completely unexpected ones. We are building independent individuals here, not just human memory banks.
To actually pull this off, educators rely on this overarching toolkit. These are the actual hands-on methods that yank students out of passive listening and force them into active participation. So looking at the list, we've got cooperative and collaborative learning, experiential learning, guided discovery learning, inquiry-based learning, problem-based learning, and project-based learning. It's a lot, I know, but let's break down how a few of these really powerful tools actually work in practice.
Okay, Section 3, active learning in action, learning by doing.
So active learning fundamentally changes the whole role of the teacher. Instead of being the sage on the stage who just stands there instructing, the teacher actually becomes a facilitator, using authentic, real-world activities. They basically provide the materials, ask some guiding questions, and then they step back. By letting students investigate and explore iteratively, which really just means they try, fail, and try again, we dramatically boost how much information they actually retain. We're forcing them into metacognition, which is just a fancy way of saying we are making them think really deeply about what they're actually doing.
Moving right along to Section 4, collaborative versus cooperative learning, working together differently.
Now, there is a super crucial nuance between these two methods that trips a lot of people up. Both maximize peer interaction and group students together to get a task done. But there's a catch.
Collaborative learning is broadly about small groups working to achieve a common goal. Basically, making sure learning isn't just this lonely activity, but rather heavily focused on social interactions. Cooperative learning, on the other hand, it adds a highly structured layer. The learners pursue common goals as a group, but, and this is absolutely critical, they are assessed individually.
Because let's be honest, you can't just throw students into a group, cross your fingers, and hope for the best, right? To do cooperative learning well, you have to intentionally structure these 5 core elements. First, you need individual learner accountability, so nobody can just hide in the back and let the rest of the group do all the heavy lifting. Second, mutual interdependence, where they literally need each other to succeed. Then you add in face-to-face interaction, the active practice of interpersonal skills, and finally, regular self-assessment of how the group is actually functioning. It's this exact structure that fosters really high-level reasoning and complex problem-solving.
All right, our final section. Section 5, Inquiry and Project-Based Learning. Solving the unknown.
So inquiry-based learning is just a fantastic strategy to really enhance scientific thinking skills, things like experimentation and evaluating evidence. We're talking about teaching students how to critically evaluate what they see by discussing the important work of actual scientists. The crucial takeaway here is that students are learning by doing. They're stepping directly into the shoes of scientists, tackling complex tasks, producing realistic products, and then, more often than not, presenting those findings to an actual audience.
Consider this great quote from Thomas way back in the year 2000. He points out that projects involve learners in constructive investigations, which challenge them to generate new understanding and skills rather than just relying on existing knowledge. They literally can't just lean on what they already know. And honestly, this perfectly circles it right back to our driving in the rain analogy from the very beginning. You're forcing students to generate brand new solutions the second the conditions around them suddenly change.
Which leaves us with this final, really vital question to reflect on. Whether you're out there learning something new yourself, or maybe you're in a position to teach others. Are you simply teaching your students to drive in the sunshine? Or are you intentionally using these integrated pedagogies to build a bridge, helping them develop the true, highly adaptable competence they'll need to navigate the storm? By embracing these layered, active methods, we really can transform our classrooms into genuine training grounds for the real world. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and hey, keep building those bridges.